Okay, you've bent your Skeg cable. Now what? Let's walk through a Skeg cable replacement. You'll need these tools to do the job right. At the end of this video, we'll show you some options on cables and cutters. First, loosen the brass set screw on the slider knob inside the slider box. This releases the knob and the cable inside the inner slider tube. Next, grab the slider tube with some vice grips. This is so the tube will not be pulled back when you pull out the cable from the rear. Now go to the back and pull the Skeg blade down, pulling the cable free. Now bump the Skeg blade off the pivot rod. Now you can push the slider tube and knob forward. If the cable does not release and slide free of the slider tube, you can push the slider tube and cable back enough to get to the top of the Skeg blade and release the cable at the blade with the 1/16 inch hex wrench. Remove the black plastic cover from the outer slider tube in the cockpit near the thigh pad. Now pull the cable and inner slider tube forward into the cockpit. Let's take a closer look at the Skeg blade and the cable attachment fixture. There is a small set screw that holds the cable secure. I've taken it apart to show you. The replacement cable may or may not be cut clean enough for insertion into the brass fixture. The one on the right is good to go. You may need to nip off the end of the cable. Reinsert the cable into the fixture and tighten the set screw. Replace the Skeg blade on the pivot rod. You can then try feeding the cable through the small hole at the top of the Skeg box and feeding it forward. It can be quite difficult to get the cable past the final junction point at the rear of the slider box. If this is the case, you can feed the cable into the slider box, pushing it back to the rear, then attach the cable to the blade. Either way, now you can feed the new cable forward into the slider tube, making sure the slider knob is in place. This is best done with 2 pairs of pliers as shown. Put a small piece of duct tape over the Skeg box to hold the blade in the up position. Now position the slider tube into place so that the small access hole is at the forward edge of the slider box. This access hole is where the set screw on the knob sets. When you get it right, tighten the brass screw down and we're almost done. Look inside the cockpit at the outer slider tube and you'll see the end of the cable sticking past the tip of the tube. Cut this off flush and replace the black plastic cap. Remember, always be careful to uphaul your Skeg when you are landing on shore and never deploy it unless you are in deep water. Now let's take a look at options for cutting and dressing the Skeg cable and 2 different types of cables that will work for your Skeg. The 3 cutters we'll show are Parks bicycle cable cutters, a marine cable cutter, and a pair of linesman pliers. First, let's look at the Parks bike cable cutters. These do a great job and are fairly inexpensive. The marine cable cutters are by far the best and most expensive. Good linesman pliers work okay, but as you can see, it's a 2-handed job getting through the cable. The second cut is angled, which can make insertion into the slider tube easier. The cable on the left won't work, and the one on the right is good to go. Grinding is another option, You can easily smooth and sharpen the ends a bit if necessary. Any stray wires will make this job quite difficult. The 1/8 inch marine stainless steel cable most commonly found comes in two configurations, 1x19 and what Confluence uses, 7x7. The 7x7 is 7 strands each, made up of 7 smaller strands, or 49 individual wires. This cable is quite flexible and harder to kink. The 1x19 is 19 individual strands wound into one. Stiffer overall, but a bit easier to kink. If you are uncomfortable with any of these procedures, please feel free to visit your local Confluence Water Sports dealer for help, or contact us.